Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It's a Star Wars podcast from LaughingPlace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I'm the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content. And that means that every once in a while I'll notice a typo and tell people about it when they spell Wookiee wrong or something like that. At LaughingPlace.com. And this is episode 95 of Who's the Bossk? We're going to be talking about the finale. We still don't know if it's a series finale or a season finale of Star Wars, the Book of Boba Fett. And for that discussion, I have invited back on the show Laughing Place's own Kyle Burbank. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk about this interesting show.
Mike Farnham in the chat says Rising Moons, which we would say if we're on Batu, like that. And then Grogu asked if Doobie asked if Grogu is in the top right. Yeah, Grogu is up here looking down on all of us. And then Mike Mack says he's been reminded how to spell Wookiee by me before, so that makes sense.
There's another Grogu in my frame as well.
Oh,
along with Hooter and Yoda and
nice,
some other sort of animal.
I love it.
Thank you.
Excellent. You have. I'm very jealous of your wall space because I have swiftly run out of wall space. I would kill for more wall space. Kyle, what else is going on? How's Zach's of Life? You're the co-host of that podcast over on LaughingPlace.com as well.
Yes, that's our Marvel equivalent to your show, down to the 80s and sitcom inspired pun name. We've been on a break because there hasn't been any Marvel content, but we are going to be doing a show in the upcoming week to recap a couple of the assembled documentaries, behind the scenes documentaries that they've been doing, and then we'll come back in full force for Moon Knight at the end of next month.
Did you watch the assembled about Hawkeye already?
We did. We watched that yesterday, and next week we should be getting the one for Eternals, but it's been delayed several times before, so we'll find out.
So give me a tidbit that you learned about the making of Hawkeye. Anything good come out of there?
Well, so this is very specific, but there was a part where they show them working in New York, and I see an extra do what they call a foreground cross, which means you walk in front of the actors and right between the lens of the camera and the actors. And I could see that the extra thought he was getting a little too close to the actors, and it kind of caused him to pause. And I'm sure that as he was walking the rest of the way, he was cursing himself and worrying about his job. And I felt for him because I've done that many times before.
That's right. You have some background experience, right?
Yeah.
So Rebecca's here as well. Rebecca Mosley joining us again for this run of Boba Fett discussion episodes, which is swiftly coming to an end with this one. Rebecca, how are you? Thank you for joining us again.
Oh, I'm doing well, Mike. Looking forward to talking about this week's headlines and the recent episode of Boba Fett. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to talking about it a little bit more with everybody.
Yes. Doobie says Rebecca has background experience too. Is it only in the Country Bears movie, or is it other stuff as well?
Only the Country Bears matters. Anything else is just more independent.
Christmas parades.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, exactly.
Once you've got the Country Bears on your IMDb filmography, you can quit. That's it.
Hey,
your career is made.
I lucked out in that my role ended up getting highlighted, so I was fortunate. There were many people there in the rafters and whatnot who didn't end up with a little bit of noticeable screen time. So it was just luck of the draw.
So you can find Rebecca's cameo in the Country Bears. Is that on Disney Plus?
Yes, you can. Yes.
Great. Kyle, this is your second time on Who's the Bossk. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Are you ready for the 5 Star Wars questions level 2?
I think I am, yes.
Okay. You had advanced access to these questions. You could prepare your responses. Number 1 of the 5 Star Wars questions. Level 2. What's your favorite line of dialogue in a Star Wars movie or television series?
Okay. I think I'm going to have to go with Rey Skywalker. I'm totally kidding. I can't even say that with a straight face. I'm actually surprised I got that far into it because I seriously practiced and I kept laughing every time.
I want to
no,
rewind when this goes up later. I want to rewind and look at my response when you said that.
Right?
I was like, I was ready to roll with it and get the reasoning, but
no, I'm gonna go with "Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?"
that's a good one.
I like fun, quippy things. So
Yeah. Always a fun line for sure. I just as soon kiss a Wookiee is Mike Farnham's favorite there in the chat. Which Star Wars planet would you like to live on and why?
well, is it okay if I go with a forest moon?
Yeah, we've
Okay.
counted that before. Yeah, the
All right.
Force
Well,
Moon
then,
of Endor.
Endor.
Oh.
That's it's so nice there. It's like Northern California basically. So yeah, can't go wrong.
And I love those tree houses. I
Oh,
think we've
gosh,
talked
yeah.
about that before. My love of that architecture.
We have talked about that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely a fun place to live. It would be a fun place to live. I haven't lived there personally yet, but I visited down there at MGM Studios. No, Disney's Hollywood Studios. They have a miniature Ewok village you can check out, and I've always enjoyed seeing that. Number 3, what is your favorite era in the Star Wars storytelling timeline, and why? So the examples I like to give are the Old Republic, thousands of years before the original trilogy. Then you've got the High Republic, which is a couple hundred years before the original trilogy. The Fall of the Jedi is the prequel era. The Reign of the Empire is between the prequels and the original trilogy, where Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to be set. The Age of Rebellion is the original trilogy itself. Then you've got the New Republic, which is The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, all those shows on Disney Plus, coming to Disney Plus. You got the sequel trilogy era, the Rise of the First Order, and then you've got, I always like to include the Legends canon, which is all those books and comics that came out in the 90s and beyond that took place like after Return of the Jedi. Which one of these would you choose as your favorite and why?
Well, like 99% of your guests, I'm sure I'm going to take Age of Rebellion.
Yeah, original trilogy. Why is that?
I mean, I think it's the most solid trilogy. I mean, I like the other ones, but obviously I don't know as much about them. I like that they're ripe for, more content.
Right.
So I appreciate that about them. But of course, I mean, you can't go wrong with the original trilogy.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I do think, both the Reign of the Empire era and the New Republic era are fertile ground right now for storytelling. We are going to be getting a lot of stories in those eras. So excited for more of that. Number 4, which Star Wars creature would you like to have as a pet?
I would like to have a porg.
And why is that?
It's just adorable. I mean, I don't think I can count Ewok. They seem to be pretty smart. They don't seem like pets. They seem
Right.
their own race.
Yeah.
So that's different. But porgs are pets in my opinion, and
Sure.
I think they're very cute. Chewbacca is a little mean to them, but I like them.
Yeah. Chewbacca tries to eat them. Mike Farnham says Dianoga, which is also Rebecca's choice, if I recall correctly from previous episode. And then number 5 of the 5 Star Wars questions, level 2. If you could, if you're Kathleen Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm, you can bring in any filmmaker or author to have a meeting and talk about a future Star Wars story that they might create, who would it be?
Well, I have to say, I really liked my wife's pitch about Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and cheat a little bit. I want to see Phil Lord and Chris Miller still. I'm not necessarily seeing what they did with Solo, but I would still like to see them, make a triumphant comeback and do some other story. Because I think they've been, everything that they've made before and after, I think has been really interesting. So I hope that is possible one day.
I've been thinking about this a lot because they've been doing some interviews recently where they've actually talked about this experience and how they kind of count it as a little bit of a film school for them. Solo was probably the biggest movie that they would have, biggest live action movie that they would have tackled at that point. And I think they said they worked on it for like 90 days they were shooting, which is a lot. And then obviously there was this creative falling out between them and somebody at Lucasfilm. The rumor was it was the Kasdans, Lawrence Kasdan and Jonathan Kasdan, who wrote the film. What I always wondered is like, why would you bring in these guys who have this very specific sensibility? If you've seen like 21 Jump Street or Clone High or what was it, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, all the other stuff, Lego Movie that they had done before. So you know their sensibility, but you bring them in just as directors. They're not writing the movie, but they're guys that are known for like their improvisation or comedy chops and stuff. And then that sensibility doesn't fit the screenplay that you already have written by a Star Wars veteran and his son. It just seemed like an odd choice, an odd pairing, and obviously didn't work out. But I totally agree. I would have loved to see what they were going to do. And as soon as I saw some of the stuff in Solo, I knew like, okay, that's a Lord and Miller thing. Like when Han is speaking Wookiee or Shriwook, the language in that scene on Mimban, I just knew in my head that was something that Lord and Miller put in there. And it turned out later on, somebody did reveal that was one of their like on the set additions to that movie. So I think it would have been a very different film. I would have really liked to have seen their vision of what Solo could have been. But I also think if they, the better choice probably would have been to let them write and direct it. I don't know. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. And, but now seeing their success with Spider-Verse, I wonder if maybe there's an animated project in the Star Wars universe that would fit them better.
But based on what they're saying in these interviews, I doubt they would want to go back because they had a bad experience.
No, I mean, I totally understand that. So that's why I think it's far-fetched, but stranger things have happened.
No, yeah, but I totally, I'm with you on that. I love those guys. I've enjoyed pretty much everything they've done that I've seen, and would love to have seen some Star Wars come out of them too. Okay, that is the end of the, yes.
Before we move on, check it out. There you are. There's your reaction to Rey.
That's great. So if you're listening to this later, Rebecca rewound time in the stream a little bit and found my reaction to Kyle saying that Rey Skywalker was his favorite line.
It's as if a foul odor has hit your just gonna say that's what that's
pretty fantastic. That may be the thumbnail for this on YouTube. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the 5 Star Wars questions and to the third and final interview that I did for Fraggle Rock Back to the Rock on Apple TV Plus. Kyle, are you a Fraggle guy, a Muppet guy at all? Or
I mean, I like the Muppets. Grew up with Muppet Babies. Definitely seen Fraggle Rock a lot in my youth. Haven't revisited it much since, but I've heard this is great. I wish I had Apple TV Plus to watch it, but
yeah, I really enjoy it. I think it's really well done. I was very impressed, and I did get the opportunity to interview a few people involved with the show. If you go back a couple episodes, I talked to the Fraggles themselves, Wembley and Mookie, and then last week I did an interview with the showrunners, and this week I've got an interview with the actual president of television for the Jim Henson Company, and her name is Hallie Stanford, and she was a fantastic interview subject. The interview is about 5 minutes long, and I'm going to play it right now. And that's my interview with Hallie Stanford, the president of television for the Jim Henson Company. If you're watching this on YouTube, you did not see the interview, but you can go and check it out on the LaughingPlace YouTube channel. If you're listening later on, you will have heard that interview. And yeah, please check out Fraggle Rock, Back to the Rock on Apple TV Plus. Highly recommended if you're a fan of the original Fraggle Rock. They did a great job in updating it for the current generation, current culture. And if you're just a fan of puppets or Muppets in general and you don't know Fraggle Rock, I always recommend the original series and this one as well. Okay, that brings us to Star Wars headlines for the week. And the big one is that we got a release date for the premiere, the first episode of Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, the limited series coming to Disney Plus on May the 25th. That's the 45th anniversary of the release of the original Star Wars film into theaters. Are you guys excited for this, Kyle, first?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think this is a little tiny bit later than people were expecting, but I like the tribute to the original film. I got it immediately as soon as I saw that it was the May 25th. So
Did I say May? Did I say March?
No, you didn't. I just did.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. How about you, Rebecca? What are your thoughts?
I'm very excited. I'm interested to see Hayden Christensen. There's been the reports of his involvement. I'm curious how significant that will be. Just intrigued by the notion that we will once again be on Tatooine.
That's right. Yeah, people are commenting on that. Mike Farnham in the chat said he hopes they include Obi-Wan and not too much Mando. Yeah, this is a different time period. So if Mando is in it, if Din Djarin is in it, he'll be much younger, which would be odd. But maybe Obi-Wan will bump into a young Din Djarin in his travels.
He won't recognize his face.
Right. But yeah, people have pointed out that Luke has that line that Tatooine is the farthest planet from the center of the galaxy or whatever, and then all the movies and shows keep going back there over and over again. I don't have a problem with that. I get it. It's like Hobbiton in the Lord of the Rings. Like, yeah, you got to go back there every once in a while. It's the starting place. Mike Mack says he can't wait for the series, but also excited that it isn't coming May the 4th because Moon Knight is still going to be running, I guess. Is that right? Is that going to be 8 episodes or 6 or what? Do we know?
Well, I think it's probably 8, and I think people were speculating that maybe it would have 2 episodes to start with so that it was done in time if this did come out on the 4th.
Right, because they've done that with a couple shows before. But yeah, I'm also very excited for Obi-Wan. Looking forward to it. And yeah, May the 4th usually has so much else going on top of, last year we got the Bad Batch, on top of all the news and the merchandise and going to the parks. Usually have to go to Disneyland, see what's going on down there for May the 4th, quote unquote Star Wars Day. So yeah,
I think it's better to celebrate a real Star Wars holiday instead of a fake one.
That's right. This is a sticking point as well, because if you want to celebrate the actual anniversary of Star Wars, it's May the 25th, not May the 4th, which is it's just a pun, basically. So there you go. Obi-Wan Kenobi, just a few months away. Excited for that. From the book of Boba Fett, we got a new character poster this week. This guy right here, Cad Bane, different Western inspired guy. This guy wears a hat. That's the difference. There's the poster of Cad Bane, the bounty hunter who showed up in the Clone Wars originally. He was in the Bad Batch last year, and now we've got him in the book of Boba Fett. We're going to talk about him a bit more in the discussion of the episode. And
I don't have the second poster.
Was there another poster this week?
I think there may have been another Boba poster, but I didn't.
The poster with all the characters in it. Yeah, that was a fun one too. Although, I mean, everybody complains about everything all the time, but I saw people complaining that some of the more supporting roles got bigger, more representation on the poster than some of the main characters, which I get it. I understand.
I mean, that's kind of the complaint of the entire show, isn't it?
Right. Yes, that's about right. And then in other Boba Fett news, the title character and Fennec Shand and Black Chrysanthemum have joined Fortnite. Kyle, have you ever played Fortnite?
Nope.
No, me neither. So I can't comment on this. I don't think Rebecca has played it.
No, the only thing I know about Fortnite is that dance that everybody does. So that's my Fortnite knowledge.
I think I've talked about this before, but we have a neighbor, a teenage kid who I'm pretty sure is playing Fortnite frequently, and I can hear him yelling at his. I guess you play it on your computer, right? It's not like is it a console game?
You can download it on console stuff.
Yeah.
I'm very old. I'm sorry. I feel very old. But I didn't even know if this is a game that I would be into as a younger person, because I never liked online video games where you have to
then you'd be interact. Having to challenge your 13-year-old neighbor, and they'd probably be yelling swear words that they're not supposed to be saying.
Exactly. And I've heard some of those swear words. So yeah. Let's go to comic book reviews for this week. There were a couple new ones from Marvel. We got Darth Vader number 20. This is the reintroduction of the character Sabe back into the comics. She had been in this Darth Vader comic at the beginning of a couple years ago, at the beginning of this run by Greg Pak, and now she's back again, and she's kind of finding out more about the history of what happened to Padme. You know, that Sabe is the handmaiden played by what's her name? Keira Knightley from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies in The Phantom Menace. But she's investigating what actually happened to Padme at the end of Revenge of the Sith. And she's kind of finding out little piece by piece what happened to her. She's discovered that Padme had a son, which this droid here knows that Padme had one child. It doesn't know that it had twins. It doesn't know that Padme had twins. So now she knows that Luke Skywalker exists and was the son of Anakin Skywalker, but she doesn't know that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker. She hasn't made that connection yet. I imagine that's going to come up at some point, but I'm really enjoying this comic. As always, I think Greg Pak, the writer, does a great job. There's a look at some of the artwork, which is really nice. And then Vader, it's also kind of a tie-in to this Crimson Reign crossover thing that's happening right now, where Crimson Dawn, the criminal organization, has infiltrated basically every faction in the galaxy, including the Empire. And Darth Vader's going around trying to eliminate all those infiltrators or spies. So it's pretty fun. It's got a lot of stuff, a lot of Darth Vader cutting down people with his lightsaber in it. So that's always fun to see. And then Trail of Shadows, number 5. This is the conclusion of this mini series that takes place in the High Republic era. And it's kind of a murder mystery. You've got these two characters. Emmerich Kaftor is the name of the Jedi Master there. And then the lady on the right is a private investigator. Blanking on her name. But anyway, they team up and they investigate these mysterious deaths of Jedi Knights. And it turns out to be this creature that I'm not going to spoil too much about, but I thought this is like a film noir type murder mystery set in the Star Wars universe. I really, really enjoyed this series, written by Daniel Jose Older, who I kind of go back and forth on about whether I like his writing or not, but this is definitely among his better stuff and probably one of my favorite things to come out of the High Republic so far. So this is highly recommended. Whenever they do like the collected trade paperback version of this series, I say go out and buy it. It's only 5 issues. It'll probably be like $20 or something. And then Max said there's a Crimson Reign crossover event at the same time as Marvel's Devil's Reign crossover event. I guess so. Yeah. I don't know. They don't really think too much about how the superhero stuff is conflicting with Star Wars. I don't think it's two very separate worlds. Mike Farnham says this is Scarecrow and Mrs. King for Star Wars. Maybe. What was that about? I never watched that. Do you know?
I think of it as just those common detective shows of the era. You know, you had Heart to Heart, and you had Remington Steele. You know, just the male female series.
Okay, yeah, I always like mystery shows like that. My wife and I are still going through the entire series of Columbo, which I loved growing up, but I had only seen like episodes here and there. I never actually went through all of them, so we're slowly, gradually getting our way through Columbo.
You know that David Koenig, who has done a lot of like behind the scenes Disney books, he actually did a book about the Columbo series as well. So, you know,
nice.
once you're through those, you might enjoy learning a bit more about behind the scenes through Koenig's book.
Doobie says Columbo is the second best show ever. Definitely the best, one of the best lead character performances in the history of television. Peter Falk.
I find it so rewatchable.
Yeah, he's just so entertaining to watch as a character and as a performer. So yeah, highly recommend that as well. And then finally in comics this week, I started doing Star Wars Adventures because I kept hearing how good it was, and I had always kind of written it off as like a kid's comic. So now I'm going to start reviewing these as well on LaughingPlace.com. And I started with issues 13 and 14, which kind of had a 2-parter about Rey from the sequel trilogy, which I enjoyed. It also had a short story about Darth Vader. And then there was one about Deva Lompop, who's one of the bounty hunters in War of the Bounty Hunters. But this one takes place way back in the High Republic era, hundreds of years earlier. So this is she belongs to a species that lasts, lives hundreds of years. So Star Wars Adventures from IDW. It's fun. It's all like anthology style storytelling, little short stories from any era involving any character. And that's what's really appealing to me about it. So that will be part of my ongoing comic coverage from now on over at LaughingPlace.com. What's this?
And I just wanted to toss in that some of these are available as part of Comixology Unlimited, or if you're a member of Comixology Unlimited, you can get them for like a 15% off the cover price. So just keep that in mind if you are not like Mike and don't mind having digital copies of your comics.
What were you going to say, Kyle?
I was gonna that one character with the red one that was on the little cover, and then a couple frames. I would have sworn that was Hellboy.
It does look a lot like Hellboy. He's a bounty hunter. I think he's a member of the Deveronian species, who you can see in the original Star Wars film in the cantina, and they just look like a devil man, basically, with horns. And I think in the first movie, it was just like a devil mask or something that somebody had lying around because they were so desperate for creatures in the cantina. But then, they have to make an excuse or work it into the mythos or the lore. So now they've created this species called the Deveronians that look like that. And they're just basically like devil people.
Gotcha.
Basically. Yep. All right. Let's go on to John Williams. Had his 90th birthday this past week. One of the biggest reasons in my mind that Star Wars was such a huge success. If I had to list like the 10 most influential people on Star Wars ever, he would probably be in the top 3. I don't know. What do you guys think? Top 3?
Yeah, I think so.
For sure.
Yeah. Lucas, you got...
For sure.
Ooh, Harrison Ford was probably a big deal in the beginning, and then maybe John Williams, or maybe Williams is number 2.
I'll be honest, I felt to some extent that my enjoyment of Book of Boba Fett maybe was influenced a bit by, I didn't relate well with the score. The main theme I embraced, but I found the score distracting at times for me. Just my taste.
Sure. Yeah, the score is such an important factor in your enjoyment and immersion in entertainment like this. And the score for the original trilogy and basically all the Star Wars movies that he contributed to are so iconic and memorable. Mm-hmm. So happy birthday to John Williams. In sadder news, we had a death in the Star Wars family this week. One of the founding members of Industrial Light and Magic, Robert Blaylock, passed away this week. I didn't know much about him, but I read a little bit about how instrumental he was in creating some of the technology that they used for the visual effects in the original Star Wars trilogy. So rest in peace to Robert Blaylock. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but that's his name, Black. Did you guys have you heard this name before?
I had not. No.
Yeah, no, this was an unfamiliar name, but clearly instrumental in the visual aspect.
Yeah, I had recently read a biography of George Lucas I talked about on the show, and I think his name came up a couple times, but not as one of the, you know all these big names from ILM, the Phil Tippett's and those guys, but this guy was there from the very beginning and was a very important part.
I got the impression he was a tinkerer, Mike.
Yeah.
Would that be a way to describe his influence?
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I know he worked with, boy, I'm so bad with names today, but he worked with some of those very famous guys from ILM to create that early camera tech and stuff. The VistaFlex camera or whatever that was called that they used to do the Go motion and stuff like that. If I had a better memory, I would be rattling off these names right now. But definitely sad to hear that news. And rest in peace to Robert Dykstra. Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yeah. John Dykstra. The Dykstra Flex camera is what we're talking about there. So thank you, Mike, in the chat for contributing that. In video game news, The Force Unleashed, Star Wars The Force Unleashed, is a 2008 game that came out for a lot of different consoles back then, and now it's going to be ported to the Nintendo Switch. Have either of you played this one?
I haven't, but I do have a Switch, and so I have a feeling Becca might want to get this.
Rebecca, you familiar with this game?
I am not familiar with this game. It looks beyond my capabilities. I'm still just waiting for Lego.
This was the period in my life where I fell away from Star Wars for a while, and I knew people who had this game. I never played it, but I may pick it up when it comes out on the Switch because I've always kind of wanted to check it out. I heard really good, fun things about it. So Geo in the chat says, oddly enough, they have added motion controls to the game. I think it had motion controls on the Wii, if I'm not mistaken, because it did come out for the Nintendo Wii back in 2008. And I'm pretty sure that would have had motion controls as well. But yeah, if it was on Xbox or PS3 or whatever, PS2 back then, maybe. Either way, that's coming out. Was that April 20th? So
hey, it says we can challenge friends in the duel mode. So I think we need to have some lightsaber duels.
Yeah.
Challenge you to a duel.
Yep.
That would be fun.
How do you hit your friend with a glove through the Switch though?
Right. We just saw Hamilton again last night at the Pantages, so this is especially relevant for us. Hasbro has revealed the Vintage Collection Throne Room playset with a carded Bib Fortuna action figure. This is available for pre-order. The pre-order already go up? I think so. Maybe. It costs a lot of money though.
I'm sure.
When they were doing this Hasbro live stream yesterday morning, and I was covering it for the site, and after they revealed this, but before they announced the price, I asked Rebecca what she thought the price was going to be, and her estimate was probably the reasonable amount of money. She was like, "What'd you say, 50 something?"
But in all fairness, I would go up a little bit, having seen kind of all of these little trinkets that go with it.
Right.
Because my initial view was just this. I didn't have that in mind, but I still wouldn't go quite as high. I would be closer to like the $100 price range. But this is retailing, Mike, for $229.99.
Yeah. Mike Farnham said $20 in the comment, but it's $230
like Lego level, and it's not that detailed, not as like intricate as Legos, where there's a lot more to do.
Right, Lego, you get to build it yourself. I'm sure this has pieces that you have to snap together or whatever, but $230 would give you a pretty sizable Lego set, and this is, it's basically like a diorama for your action figures, which is something that always appeals to me more than like a spaceship or something. I like to have this diorama on my shelf, put all the figures down there on the dais in Jabba the Hutt's former throne room there. I think it looks really nice, but $230, it's just a little bit out of my price range, I think.
In perspective, the recent Razor Crest, that was what, $350?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not that far. I don't know. For me, I was surprised that it was kind of that close to the price on the Razor Crest, because I think of a ship, you open it up, and I think of that as more interesting in a way. So
sure. And the comments,
large, right?
Right.
It was this one is about this big. Would you say, Mike?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Because is that a 3 3/4 inch?
Yeah, it's the 3 3/4 inch scale. It's not the 6-inch scale. And the comments in that live stream were rough yesterday, with people upset about the price. And this is coming after that Rancor, Black Series Rancor failed. The crowdfunding campaign for that failed, I think largely because of the price on that as well. So I wonder depending on how this thing does, I wonder if we're getting to the point where just like the plastic involved in going into these toys is getting too expensive to make these things, desirable and affordable. Mike Max says you can either buy 10 of these play sets or go to the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser.
It's actually low for Star Cruiser, depending on how many people you're sharing a room with.
True.
I mean, if you're doing a per person basis, then maybe, but not per room.
Yeah. This is something that does appeal to me. I don't think I am personally going to buy it though, because it's just too much, and I just don't have the room for it.
And it's Bib Fortuna. Like, that's the other thing. Yeah. It's like, it's a lot of money to spend on a character that,
right,
is not at the top of anyone's list.
But he's slightly chubbier now, so which makes him a little different from the other Bib Fortuna figure that I have. Mike Mack says this is a crazy price, and that's coming from a guy with a $300 Sentinel in the next room. So yeah, that's
the Orlando
the
Sentinel.
state. Overpaid for that newspaper. Okay, we have more stuff from Hasbro, right, Rebecca?
Yeah, we have a couple of vintage collection figures that are available for pre-order. Yoda and a clone trooper. These are 3 3/4 inch scale figures.
Vintage collection, yeah.
There's also the Black Series figures. You said you had pre-ordered a few of these, Mike.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that there's a Werner Herzog Black Series figure from The Mandalorian, I was like, I gotta get me one of those. I also, while I was there, because I set my alarm for 10 a.m. this morning, which is when they went on sale, and while I was on the Hasbro Pulse site, I also bought the Ahsoka Rosario Dawson version of Ahsoka and the Death Watch Mandalorian, because that's been featured on The Mandalorian proper in the flashbacks. I didn't get Omega, or what was the fifth one in that? Oh, Echo. Yeah, because Bad Batch doesn't really do it for me as much as the live action stuff has been. But yeah, I did pre-order a few of these. I'm still, regardless of them being overpriced, I'm still into these Hasbro Black Series toys. So they got me on those.
Well, speaking of these like dioramas, what if you could get the Werner Herzog pushing a boat up a mountain?
Right? The Fitzcarraldo playset. Did you know that I would know what you were talking about there when you?
Of course.
Okay. Have you seen the documentary about the making of Fitzcarraldo? I think it was called Burden of Dreams. That's a good one. You got to check that one out. Okay, it's time for Sandcrawler Selections, where we find out Rebecca's 7 best Star Wars pieces of Star Wars merchandise from the last week, revealed in the last week. Is that the criteria?
Yeah, that's what we're going with here. We're starting off with a Cad Bane design that is featured on numerous sweatshirts and t-shirts and tank tops. It's got a profile headshot kind of thing, and then the full body figure, so you can have that nice broad brimmed hat silhouette. There's also a Book of Boba Fett, what they're calling the Group Showdown panel sweatshirt. This one features the focus on the eyes of the Marshal, I would say his deputy, and then Cad Bane as well. And it has "From the Desert Comes a Stranger" in between each of these panels. That's available over on Amazon. There's a tote bag. There's some other items as well that features this design. It's called the Book of Boba Fett Grogu Training Panels. It's a collection of images, kind of, I think, in a comic book style as far as the panel layout, but it's stills from the training sequence that we saw in the Book of Boba Fett.
Pointing out how silly the name is first. The Book of Boba Fett, and here's Grogu and Luke.
And here's
in a comic book form.
Yep. And then there's a chibi coin from the New Zealand Mint featuring an adorable chibi version of Fennec Shand. That is from the New Zealand Mint. Oh, her eyes are kind of peeking
I like
out
that.
there.
That's really cute.
There's a few big pin designs. This one is, these are those 3-inch enamel pins. Those are available at Entertainment Earth. They had Boba Fett and Fennec Shand among the designs available there. And the last 2 items I'm going to showcase today are a Book of Boba Fett poster t-shirt. It features images of Santi, Mando, Fett unmasked, and Shand unmasked.
That kind of looks like Picard there.
It does.
That's over at Box Lunch. And finally, rounding out the 7 is a Book of Boba Fett tee that features Luke, Ahsoka, and R2-D2.
I feel like we should all chip in and get this shirt for Kyle.
Because nothing says Book of Boba Fett like Ahsoka, Luke, and R2.
I like that Luke's expression is like rolling his eyes, like, can you believe I'm in this show?
I hadn't even noticed, but you're so right. He really does. So there you go. Those are my 7 picks for this week, Mike.
All right. Can we find out more about that stuff on laughingplace.com? I think
For
we
sure.
can.
I'm going to put some links below so you can easily find those items. And in many cases, there's a small affiliate fee for us that we get and no additional cost to you. And we greatly appreciate the support if you opt to purchase those items through those links.
Awesome. And that's the end of Star Wars headlines for this week. And that brings us to our main topic, Star Wars, the book of Boba Fett, Chapter 7, In the Name of Honor. And I'm going to start by asking Kyle about the previous 6 episodes in the book of Boba Fett. What were your expectations going in this series from the beginning? And how did you feel about everything that came before this finale?
Okay, so I'm definitely on the more casual side of Star Wars fandom. Lately, I've been way more into Marvel, so I didn't have a ton of expectations. We really enjoyed The Mandalorian, especially the last season, where we were making more of an effort to watch it as they were coming out, whereas the first season we kind of waited and then watched them at our leisure, so a lot of stuff got spoiled for us. And then the first couple episodes, I enjoyed them, but they didn't grab me as much. I just kind of, oh, okay, that was fine. And then I thought it really picked up once Mando came in, but at the same time, it was like, okay, I didn't know you were going to be like completely go doing its its own thing. So I think we all have a lot of questions on that we can discuss. And then that's where it brings us into the finale of me being like, okay, I'm more interested in this, but I'm more also interested to see how this has to do with Boba Fett.
Right. Yeah, I think that's going to be the real the strangest thing about looking back at this season of television and how it was structured and how the variation in the quality between each episode, like looking back and thinking that the best 2 episodes, in my opinion, of the Book of Boba Fett did not really feature Boba Fett at all. And it's such a bizarre thing to say.
It almost seemed like it would have been like, because those first 2 episodes of the show are so slow, it almost felt like they should have done, a Mando season 3 with an aside to Boba Fett instead of the other way around.
The other thing I was thinking was, like, what if they had, if it was the exact same content that we got, but they had started peppering in the scenes with Mando from the first episode, like at the end of, or in the middle or wherever. In episode 1, we saw him going into that space butcher shop and killing that dude. And that was that scene. Like, we get a little scene with him every week. Would that have been less weird, do you think, than devoting the entire episode to him?
Yeah, that's a good. A couple of episodes, and even more. Like, it also feels like it might be doing a disservice to whatever the next season of The Mandalorian is, where there's moments that you might have wanted in that. I don't suspect that there's many people who are fans of The Mandalorian that didn't watch this, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you skipped this and then just went to whatever the next season of The Mandalorian is. I feel like you're gonna be missing a lot, or feel, even if they do a quick recap, you're gonna be. Feel gypped that you didn't get the reunion in that show.
But this comes from comic books, though. I've been thinking about this because this is a trick that Marvel still uses, where, like, you're reading about the Avengers or whatever, and then the story continues over in Amazing Spider-Man, or you got to go and pick, if you're not already a reader of that comic, you at the very least you have to buy that issue, and then maybe you'll get hooked, and Marvel wants you to buy all the issues, so I think this is kind of Disney's way of, I don't know what if Disney like ordered Jon Favreau to include the Mandalorian and Grogu in the Book of Boba Fett, or if that was like a legitimate creative decision on their part. But it certainly seems like they want everything to feel so interconnected that you, as a casual fan, like you said you'll feel like you're missing out if you're not watching everything.
And
and
now you
maybe
make me
that's
feel hypocritical as an MCU fan, but I do
yeah,
feel like
right. And the
Marvel's
MCU,
films
yeah.
are a bit more like you could watch something as a standalone, and the payoffs are going to be fair to that character in their films, whereas the team ups are the team ups. But
Right. But
like
yeah,
even though Captain
definitely.
America 3 is mostly like an Avengers, but the story is about Captain America,
Right.
unarguably.
Yes, I would agree with that for sure. So this 7th episode was directed by Robert Rodriguez, who has directed 2 previous to this one, and it was written by Jon Favreau, who has written all the episodes except for 6, which was co-written by Favreau and Dave Filoni. So let's get into this finale here. We'll start with Kyle. What did you think of this as an episode and as a conclusion?
I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I thought it was definitely more interesting than the first couple of episodes. I liked how it kind of turned into a kaiju fight.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of elements going for it. I thought that it all came together fairly well. I liked the action. I liked it's got those predictable beats to it. But overall, I found it to be enjoyable.
What about you, Rebecca?
My take is very similar to Kyle in that when I think on it, the moments that kind of stick out to me as the most enjoyable are those that where it becomes that Godzilla movie for a bit
Yeah.
out of nowhere. But dude, I am so confused. I ended confused. I thought I knew and I understood kind of what the intended arc was of the character. But when all was said and done, I ended kind of going, I'm not sure what was supposed to be my takeaway.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. And I agree with you guys that I thought it was good, not great. I think my biggest issue with it on the first time I watched it was that my brain kind of does this thing after 42 years of consuming pop culture, movies and TV or whatever, where I can watch the first half of something and probably tell you what the second half is going to be. And I always like it when I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, I was like exactly right. Like going into this episode, I had my image in my head of what this episode was going to be. And I was pretty much down to the beat exactly right. And that disappointed me because I wanted to be surprised a little bit more. I wanted to have the rug pulled out from underneath me. And yeah, Mike, exactly what Mike said. It was predictable. That's fine, but it was predictable. And then when I watched it the second time, I really was able to enjoy it more because I knew it was coming and I could kind of focus on the fun of the action and everything. And I did think that Robert Rodriguez did a better job with the action in this episode than he did, especially with that slow motion,
Mm-hmm.
speeder chase or whatever. And then some of the fights in that first episode people have complained about. But yeah, this, I didn't have too many complaints. I mean, there were odd moments here and there that I think we'll get into as we go through. But for the most part, I did think the action was better directed. And this was a very action heavy episode. That is mostly what we got, and probably what you should get from a finale of a show like this. So it was appropriate in that way. I just think if we had gotten a few surprises, whether it was character appearances or story choices or something that I didn't see coming, I would have walked away with a better outlook or a better experience having watched the episode. I think that's my main critique. I think there's a lot to be said about the series as a whole and whether things really add up and the odd structuring here and there. But yeah, I would give it like a B, I think, both as an episode and as a series. So I think what I want to do, just for the sake of efficiency, is I'm just going to start listing, because I made a long list of all the beats,
Mm-hmm.
all the narrative beats that happen in this episode. I'm going to start listing those. And if you guys have something to say about one of those scenes, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
And instead of me having to ask you each time what you thought,
Yeah.
we'll just do it this way.
Cool.
Okay. So the episode opened with the aftermath of the explosion in the sanctuary. They're kind of standing in the ruins of that casino. And basically Boba Fett says the war has begun. And Fennec Shan says, yeah, it was inevitable, which my thought at that point was like, yes, you've been saying for 5 episodes that you're about to enter a war with the Pikes or whatever. Of course, the war has begun. Yes, good. Let's get into it. And then Din Djarin comes back and he says he thinks he got the army of foot soldiers that they need from Freetown or Mos Pelgo, which is the former name. And they're hoping that these reinforcements are going to show up and help them. So they start coming up with this plan. We get a scene between Cad Bane, the bounty hunter, the Pikes, and Mayor Mokshaiz, aka Mayor McCheese, over in Mos Eisley, where they're hiding out. And we find out that the Pikes were indeed responsible for the Tusken Raider massacre.
This was my first disappointment.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be Cad Bane.
Everybody's been saying that it would have made more sense.
I really wanted it to be Cad Bane. And then when we end up with that standoff later, then I really, really wanted it to be Cad Bane because I felt like there would have been so much more emotion in a way to that standoff if he had obliterated his family, so to speak.
Right. So Cad Bane says he has this idea of how to draw out Boba Fett from their defense inside the sanctuary. They're using that as like a fortress now. Mike Farnham raises his hand in the chat and says, you knew from the Weequay's reaction to the sheriff getting shot that he was going to get the town people together. Yes. So that's what I'm saying. Like, basically everything that happens in this episode was telegraphed from previous episodes. Like, if you had asked me last week, which we did talk about, is Grogu going to come back? I would have said yes. We talked about this. Which choice is Grogu going to make? He's going to take the chainmail. He's going to show up. He's going to be part of that final battle. That happened. We could have made a list of all these things, and the episode followed through on them. So in that way, it wasn't a surprise. We got Peli Motto return, the Amy Sedaris character. Luke's X-Wing shows up in her garage with, first she thinks it's the New Republic police. Mm-hmm. She's freaking out. She says she just submitted her registration just as the X-Wing showed up. But she discovers that Grogu is there in the cockpit, and R2 has... Yes, Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, Becca was... When this came down, she jokingly was like, oh, it's just going to be like Grogu by himself flying the plane. And then it takes a second. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen.
And I got a kick out of how Peli was our voice in saying, seriously, that's your name? I'm not calling you that.
Yes, that was a great line. And I have to think that was a reference to the fan response to Grogu, because like I said before, everyone complains about everything. So it had to be reflected in one of the characters as well. And there was a great tweet that I saw that was like, Luke found out that he had to go back to Tatooine. He was like, forget that. And he just had R2-D2 FedEx Grogu back.
So true. I'm not going there. Go ahead, R2. You take it.
Yeah, go back to Jerry Blank. And
And Mike said they tried to red herring us, thinking it might be Luke and Grogu. Yes, I definitely thought, when I first saw the X-Wing, I definitely thought we were going to get more Luke. I'm glad that we didn't. I think it was a smart choice to not have Luke in this episode, though I did not have a problem with him largely in the last episode. I think, let's keep the focus on our newer characters. So I'm glad that they made that choice. After this scene between Peli Motto and Grogu, we got a montage about how they are using the truce that Boba Fett made with the other Gotras, the other crime syndicates around Tatooine, and we follow the mods as they're riding their speeder bikes around through the different areas of Mos Espa, and they see the Trandoshans, they see the Aqualish, and they see, what was the other species? It doesn't really matter. Anyway, they think that all these guys are all on their side. Obviously, that's going to turn out not to be true a little bit later on, but I actually like that little montage because it gave us a better idea of the geography of where all this stuff was, and it kind of set up the battle to come. So I appreciated that. Then Cad Bane shows up to talk to Boba Fett for the first time in this episode, though I was really happy that they referenced and confirmed the history that these two characters have had together in both in the Clone Wars and then in the unproduced episodes of the Clone Wars that are famously unfinished, but people for some reason know already what happened in them. I think because they've talked about them at conventions and stuff. So there was an arc of the Clone Wars where Cad Bane was mentoring Boba Fett, but then it ends with him basically shooting him in a duel, and he gives him that dent, the famous dent in the Boba Fett helmet. Mike asks, why didn't R2 fly the X-Wing into the battle and help out? He just dropped off Grogu and left. Apparently, yeah, that was like the night before, though, so I don't know if he knew that was all going down. Yeah, he just left Grogu there, did not help out. So Boba Fett almost wants to take out Cad Bane there in that moment, but Fennec Shand kind of talks him out of it. But we do get the moment where Cad Bane tells Boba Fett that it was the Pikes that killed his Tusken Raider friends. So that information is now known. Then we get the betrayal of the Gotras that had made alliances with Boba Fett and his friends. So the fight basically starts breaking out there. And then we get the saddest moment to me in the entire episode, which was the Gamorrean guards falling off the I never thought that I would have this, that I would care this much about Gamorrean guards. But yeah, they really grew on me. They didn't have any, they never had any dialogue that was in basic or anything. But yeah, loved, cared about the Gamorreans. Sad to see them go. Justin Smith asked, were they lying about the pipe? What does that mean?
Pike, probably.
Pike.
Oh.
Were they lying about the Pike? Who?
Yeah, we'll need clarification on that.
Yeah, no, can you clarify your question, Justin?
Sorry. So, yeah, if we could get just a clarification on that in the chat, that'd be great. So there's a conversation between Din Djarin and Boba Fett about whether they're willing to basically stand their ground or if they should make a run for it. And the Major Domo, very funny character, comes up with an idea to basically surrender and pay off the Pikes so that they can leave the planet. And Boba Fett agrees to that and writes out his demands on this tablet very fast. He goes like, yeah, Kyle.
Yeah, you can continue with the summation, but I love this scene. I love this character. I'm familiar with the actor from Veep. So it was exciting to see him in this role. But I thought, as you continue what his demands were, I thought it was basically going to set this guy up to be like offer him up for some reason. So that was one little part that surprised me. I knew it wasn't going to go well for him, but
right. Mike says, go ahead, Rebecca.
No, with that pregnant pause, I thought he was seeing that he was the offering. Yeah,
right. I did think that as well. So yeah, that was a fun little moment. Mike said he rewatched Solo last night and made the Pike connection with the Spice Mines of Kessel. Yeah, the Pikes showed up in live action for the first time in Solo, a Star Wars story after they were introduced in the Clone Wars. But in Solo, I like the way that Pike character looked in Solo because he looks a little bit more alien in his body shape. And the Pikes in Book of Boba Fett just look like dudes with fish masks on. It just feels a little cheesier, but that's fine. I understand
the Pike place where they throw fish. Is that how it works?
A little smaller budget, I think, than Solo had. But Jeffrey said, I really thought they were going to blast the Major Domo after he read his spiel. Yeah, but he survived. He's like a cockroach. They're not going to get
Ivy train.
That's right. Yeah, that whole bit was really funny about him talking about his education on Coruscant, and Boba Fett's just like, get to it, jeez. Oh boy. Anyway,
I did enjoy the humor beats in this episode.
Yeah, that stuff was all really good.
Yeah, I thought they were well placed.
For sure, them. Absolutely. The war basically breaks out with the jetpack. Din and Boba Fett come out with their jetpacks and start blasting away. After the Major Domo reads that Boba Fett offers them nothing, basically. So they start blasting away at each other, and then they do get the reinforcements in the form of the townsfolk of Freetown. What's up, Rebecca?
No, for me, this was like these are your when I hear a garrison is coming, I'm not thinking it's a single vehicle of about a dozen, 2 dozen people.
Look, you can't fit that many people on the volume, all right? I was
a little underwhelmed by the reinforcement of the garrison here.
When they said they were telling smaller scale Star Wars stories, they meant it. All right.
And Mike Farnham reminds me that I loved
Yes.
seeing Boba Fett and Mando kind of full out with the ridiculous nature of their various weaponry and the kind of theatrical nature of it. It was quite a lot of fun.
We got to see Boba Fett fire his knee rockets in The Mandalorian last season. But yeah, it was great. That one move that he does where he's shooting his blaster with a hand and then lifts up his knee, like it's almost like a dance move, and he fires the knee rocket. Very silly, but very fun in a very Star Wars kind of way. So I enjoyed that. Where were we? We find out that Black Chrysanthemum had survived the attack by the Pikes, and he limps back to the sanctuary where they're holed up. He makes it back behind the land speeder, but Boba Fett has to come out and help him struggle his way those last few steps. So we see that Boba Fett is willing to protect his new, clan members or whatever with his own life. So a little bit of a selfless move there on his part. Then we get these big droids called Scorponeks, which have never appeared in Star Wars before, but they were designed for Attack of the Clones by Doug Chiang. So it was just a design that sat on the shelf for years and years. They were in a couple reference books, but they never showed up, even in animation or live action or anything. So they finally made it to the screen in the Book of Boba Fett. These big walking cannons with giant deflector shields that operate in the same way we've learned about before. If you watch the Clone Wars animated series a little bit in the prequels, nothing moving fast can go through these shields. You could theoretically just walk through it. And I had that question, like, why aren't they just walking through this shield? And Din Djarin could use the Darksaber and just chop up their legs. But then they show Chrysanthemum try to walk into the shield, and the thing just kicks him out of it. So I got my answer to that pretty quickly, and I was happy about that. All right. That was the Scorponek droids, the deflector shields. Oh, and then Peli, Motto, and Grogu show up on the rickshaw. And Din is not thrilled. Well, he's actually very thrilled to see Grogu, but he's not thrilled that Grogu is in danger. You get this little reunion there, which was very adorable. Grogu kind of jumps up into Din's arms. It was very cute to see them.
Yeah, that's quite a little leap he makes there. He used his training from Luke to do that.
Right. I like that all that came out of all this Jedi training was like little moments like that. And he does help out a little bit in the battle later on.
Got a cool shirt now.
Right. Yeah. And Din notices that Grogu is wearing the Beskar chainmail that was made for him by the armor. And Mike Farnham said that was the same rickshaw from the prequels. Yeah, I made a note of that in a previous episode. We've seen that thing rolling around Mos Espa in Book of Boba Fett for sure. And okay, we are up to there's like a team up between the folks of Freetown and the mods who are they're like opposed to each other because I guess one group lives out in the sticks and one group is like a group of city teens, and they make peace. They team up. Two of them go up to the roof to start shooting at these droids, and
particularly the one that said something, used some slur against the other girl. They have to team up and be friends now.
Yes. So everybody learns to get along. They're all Tatooineans, so they have to find some common ground to fight off this Pike invasion.
It was as heartwarming as when the athletes learned to work with the math, people in High School Musical. It's very similar.
Exactly similar. Like that. I have never seen High School Musical.
Neither have I.
Terrible Disney fans we are. Then
Adult
it's adult, yes. Then it's time for the Rancor. So this is another thing that they set up in an earlier episode. There was no way that this finale was going to end without the Rancor entering this battle. I even called it a Rancor Ex Machina in my notes here, but that's not true. It's not a Rancor Ex Machina because it was set up. It's as I said before, it's Chekhov's Rancor, and that paid off here. This is probably my favorite part of the episode. I think it was really fun, finally getting to see a quote unquote live action Rancor, even though it was probably all CGI. I thought it looked really nice, and they did a good job kind of making it almost look like stop motion, which was the way that the Rancor in Return of the Jedi was created. So good job on the effects. Really fun to see this thing kind of wreak havoc around Mos Espa. Let's see. Mike said it alludes to Boba Fett in the holiday special. Yeah, that too. So yeah, Boba Fett rides on that dinosaur in the Star Wars holiday special.
And two things for me when it comes to this Rancor. First of all, I was very upset that I did not instantly think that he was going to arrive on this when he flew off to go get his reinforcements.
Oh yeah.
I should have just immediately gone there. But I was initially thinking fire spray, but
Okay.
But I should have thought Rancor. But then the other thing is, honestly, as I was watching, I really was wondering, is this stop motion? Is this CGI? I really found myself questioning as I was watching it, and so I'm interested to hear from the special effects department. You know, what was there any practical? Was it all, you know, totally constructed within the computer? So yeah, it was very, very much like Harryhausen and that era.
Well, we know that they built a full-size Rancor head for the scene with Danny Trejo, because Danny Trejo tweeted out a photo of him in front of it. I don't know if they would have been able to use that. Maybe for the part where Grogu goes up to it, but Grogu, let's see, was Grogu a puppet? I guess it would have been a puppet there too. So maybe for that part, maybe that was a real Rancor, but I don't know if any of the...
But I just love that I'm even asking, you know, because I feel like with previous films, it was far easier to kind of deduce where it had transferred from, you know, the practical to the computer. And so it's just, wow.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing that we can't tell, that we definitively can't tell the difference anymore. I think that we're actually getting to the point where, you know, having CGI creatures is not going to bug me because they look close enough to what we would get out of doing it in, you know, practical stop motion or building an animatronic or whatever. So great. Wonderful. That's all I needed. I don't need it to be practical for the sake of being practical. I just want it to look real and like it exists within that space. That's all I ask for. So terrific. We get Grogu's first force use in the battle is he pulls the pin out of the droid's leg and it makes it collapse. What did you think was going to happen in that moment? Either of you?
I don't remember.
I was anticipating more of a kind of a crush,
right?
A seeming crush of the object. I didn't recall how he would, you know, love that little, you know, how he would unwind that knobby thing, or I would have gone there.
I was thinking back to Luke in the Mandalorian finale destroying all those droids, and I was actually chanting destroy droid, which was my favorite force power from the Knights of the Old Republic video game. And yeah, I was thinking he was going to do that same thing that Luke did and just basically like crumple him like tinfoil, you know. But it was a funny twist on that he really just wanted that piece for himself, right? And that just happened to help in the battle. I guess that was the implication. So I thought that was fun. And yeah, the Rancor fight versus the big droid did remind me of like Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla. Mike says he thought Grogu would make it float away like the frog. So yeah, that was another option for sure.
Well, the difference is that Godzilla can breathe fire and Rancors hate fire, apparently.
That's right. Yeah, we learned that the good way to fight off a Rancor is to use your flamethrower, and that'll make it say, forget this. I'm running off. I'm not helping Boba Fett anymore. And
as the Rancor reached in and kind of crunched on the droid, I realized that the droid for me evoked the classic War of the Worlds imagery, like, because there was that kind of that center eye, and that was part of the visuals of that, you know, 1953 film. So I kind of went there mentally.
That would not surprise me. They're always pulling from these old sci-fi movies for this kind of stuff, for the design in Star Wars. So good looking out there. What else we got? We got to I did like this little moment between Peli Motto and the Major Domo where she starts like hitting on him immediately. But my thought was like, why doesn't he just stay there behind that wall? Like, why does he have to go anywhere? He seemed like relatively protected there. I don't know. But that was a fun moment that they seem to immediately have this love connection between them. And then we get the second showdown between Boba Fett and Cad Bane. This is kind of the big character climax between those two. Now you mentioned to me in our Slack discussion, Rebecca, that you had an issue with Bane's arc in the way it played out in these two episodes.
Yeah, I'm very confused because I kind of thought that they were transitioning him into a kinder, gentler form. Like, I don't know, like moving away from that from the killer instinct. And so then to see him kind of forced into this mano-y-mano moment where in essence it's kill or be killed was a bit surprising to me, but yet the idea that it was his time with the Tuscans and that tribe taking him in and what he had learned there that ultimately allowed him to have the victory, I thought was, I guess is what I was supposed to take away from it, because Cad Bane comes to it with the, nobody's ever going to help you. You have to do it for yourself. You have to be out for yourself. Whereas I guess with this victory that Fett has in this moment, we see that you actually do need people, because without that, he would have, been toasted. So, but overall, I guess I just comes down to, I'm disappointed that Cad Bane wasn't that there wasn't kind of a payback in a way, because he now knows he had gone and murdered the Nikto for no particularly good reason. I mean, they were troublemakers, but they weren't the ones responsible for that atrocity. And so it was just weird. But I also wonder, like Justin, is Cad Bane really dead? Because people have pointed out that his chest is still blinking. I don't know enough about the Duros as a species or Cad Bane as an individual to know if I'm supposed to take away from that he may not be gone.
Well, to quote Luke Skywalker, no one's ever really gone in Star Wars. So the odds of him showing back up are pretty good, especially because he existed for such a long time in the Star Wars timeline. And you could just rewind time and he might be in Obi-Wan or something. So he'll probably pop up again in Bad Batch. Who knows? Jeffrey said he'll probably be back later on down the road. And Mike said Bane was lame. He threatens a lot and really didn't do much other than a few gunshots. Yeah, people have pointed out that those big droids also seemed very menacing, but then didn't really ever land a shot.
I feel like that's kind of classic Star Wars in a way, right?
That is definitely true.
Because I think of the battle on Endor and those enormous machines, and they're taken out by teddy bears with sticks.
Exactly. Yeah. So a Star Wars trope, to be sure. And Mike points out that Maul survived being cut in half as well. And Doobie said he'll show up when Moon Knight needs a jolt. Okay. They haven't gone that far in the crossovers yet. Then we get the King Kong homage of the Rancor climbing up the tower in Mos Espa. Very obvious tip of the hat there to a classic visual effects film. Din Djarin thinks he can fly up there and just shoot his flamethrower in his mouth. Now, when the Rancor bit the Mandalorian's helmet, were you guys thinking like what happened? What happens if he just bites his neck? Like he's just gonna pop his head off, right? Yeah. How did he know that he's just gonna bite his helmet? I don't know. It seems odd to me. Look, yes, trust in the Force.
That's the way.
This is the way. And then, the whole Rancor rampage ends with Grogu's Force lullaby, or as it's called, Animal Bond is the name of the actual Force power. Did you have something?
No, but I was scratching my face.
Okay, sure.
But I did like Grogu's nap.
Yeah.
I said as that was happening, I was like, oh, this is the most memeable moment of the episode, is Grogu napping against the
he cuddled up right next to the sleeping monster's face. He just like nestled. Not only did he just lie down beside him, but then after a moment, he like, oh, I want to make sure that I get that warmth off the Rancor.
Right.
I love that. How it kind of snuggles in there.
Very cute moment with Grogu. The Pikes decide they're going to cut and run and abandon Mayor McCheese to his own fate. But before they can do that, Fennec Shand shows up and just murders them all, which I thought, finally we get to see some Fennec Shand assassin work in this series. I did enjoy this scene, but wait, before you comment, I think we may have the same comment. You go ahead. You go first.
No, you go first.
Where was she in the scene? Because is that your comment?
Yeah, no, my question is at the beginning of the battle, they're like the headquarters. And so my thought is the command center of this event is in Mos Eisley. So you need to go there and you need to destroy them. So that way the command center is obliterated and therefore we will confuse them and then we will have a better opportunity to win. That's how I took what he said when he was asking, where are they headquartered? Yeah. So she hops on her bike. First, she saves the mods. Wonderful. Then She keeps going. And she doesn't seem to do anything until the battle's won. And I was just so confused. I'm like, wait, I don't understand. I thought she was supposed to be like killing off headquarters in the midst of the battle. I understand it's still of value to take out the top people.
Right.
But strategically, I felt like, wait. I'm so confused.
It almost makes it like more cutthroat of her. She didn't need to kill them, but she killed them anyway because they were going to leave. But yeah, my nitpick was, where was she physically in that room? Because the blaster shots like come in through the ceiling and then the rope like drops down through the middle of the like I couldn't figure out where the hole was above them, like physically. Did you have a picture of that in your head?
Well, but it seemed like there was light filtering down from the top. So it felt like there was some sort of skylight type scenario to where she could be on the roof and drop a line down in order to be able to do it. And similarly with the shooting, it seemed like it was, which seems like a bad bunker. I mean, you really should not, you should have something that you just close up.
Entirely unprotected. Anyone could assassinate you at any time. But I did enjoy that. So who knows?
It was, but I have to agree with Jeffrey. It was surprisingly like kind of dark for Disney Plus to have that poor Ithorian, pulled up off his feet and then clearly just offed.
Well, maybe that wouldn't kill an Ithorian if you hung him like that. Maybe that's only a human thing. So he's just.
You could see his feet went from being like to being. It was clear his life was gone.
Fair enough.
It's to be.
We then get an even more baffling scene because people have pointed this out too, and I had this thought myself because they're strolling through Mos Espa in the wake of this, winning this battle, and Boba Fett has some line where he's like, "I don't know if we're cut out for this." For like this whole thing that they were fighting through this whole series to achieve, which is very odd. I don't know. Did you have an interpretation of that? Anybody?
I don't know. It didn't bother me much. Like, I think, it's kind of like the graduate syndrome where you think you want something and you fight for it. And then you realize, oh, wait, this isn't for me. Like maybe he just wants to be a bounty hunter, not be like, a politician / king.
That would have been a great ending if he was just like, forget this. I'm going to go back to being a bounty hunter.
Him and his Rancor sitting on a bus.
Yeah. Hello, darkness, my old friend. But instead we get this meetup between all the friends there in Mos Espa, and they high five and freeze frame. But no, with the Wookiee is eating a bagel or something, and the other guys want, what was it? Mela run.
It looked like a fruit, some sort of fruit that he had, and the other guy's like, "How come we don't get those?" Right. And then, "No, you're gonna share." No, cut to the end of the show.
And then the show is like, Yeah, you don't really care about these guys. You care about the Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yep.
Which is, yeah, another very fun and cute scene with Grogu tapping on his little bubble to make Mando press the speed boost button on his Naboo starfighter.
Which
And
once again was what we were all waiting for, right?
Yeah.
Seeing Grogu sitting in that
Right.
little astromech spot.
Yeah, another thing that they basically told us would happen, and it did happen. So I guess it's satisfying in that way. But yeah, they're just setting up Mando season 3, probably coming around this time next year. Who knows? And we did get a brief mid-credits sequence that thankfully gave me a big sigh when I saw that Cobb Vanth, the Timothy Oliphant character, survived his blaster shot and is resting and recuperating in the back to tank with a turtleneck sweater on.
Steve Jobs.
Luke had to be in his underwear. Boba Fett was shirtless, and now the technology has advanced to the point where you can wear a turtleneck sweater.
Advanced.
And we see that the technician,
Pizza
the
cutter.
modifier, is there ready to slice him and dice him.
Yeah, but what's he gonna do while he's in the pod? He has to wait for the pod cycle, the spin cycle to be done.
He's just getting ready.
Planning, man.
Right.
Slicing
So
and
we'll
dicing.
get a cyborg Cobb Vanth at some point. But I'm glad he's still alive. No closer from Max Rebo, says Gio.
Now,
Rebecca.
as far as this character of Cobb Vanth, though, I have to tell you that it was fun I was watching this with my husband, and in the midst of this battle scene, right, you're face to face with the enemy, and they drop the line that the marshal's dead, and my husband goes, "He's really dead," and he's like, "I can't focus on this now." And
Did they say that he was dead?
No, he said he got gunned down in cold blood.
And
yeah.
So Doobie took that as he's done. And
well, so did Becca. And I'm like, no, they left wiggle room with that. I don't think he's dead.
And he was just like, I can't focus on the fight now. I need a moment. And it really took him out of the story.
No, I felt the same way. Yeah, because we got that reveal, and I did interpret that line as he was dead in that moment.
Well, I'm sure that's what they want you to think.
Yeah, so they did trick me with that.
But in doing so, they snatched people out of the intensity of the moment. It was kind of I just found it an interesting choice.
Well, I have this other problem where I can't focus on action scenes. My brain just like drifts and starts thinking about this stuff because an action scene is just like, well, either one of these people is going to win, or one side's going to win. I don't know. It's just doesn't serve any function to me besides maybe a cool move happens or a big explosion or something. I'm just not into action as much as I am story, I guess, or character stuff.
And I agree with Mike that you frame by frame, you see it was his shoulder that got shot, and you saw that the deputy, like Jeffrey pointed out. So that's why when this line was dropped, Doobie thought it was, and I didn't disagree. I kind of took it that way too. It was, we know we left it open, but now we're going to assure you that no, he's done. And so, but I didn't consider it as a line that offered you wiggle room. I thought they were kind of moving you on, because they did similarly with the Sanctuary owner.
Right.
They made some line that made me think, oh, okay, she didn't survive the blast, whereas I kind of felt unsure with the previous episode as to was she close enough, was she far enough away from the blast spot that she might have survived. But they dropped another line of dialogue earlier in the episode that kind of let me know she was done. But what do you think of this idea, Mike? Justin comes in with, they need to have a spin-off movie called Max Rebo's Day Off, following what Max is doing on that day. He thinks it should be a stoner comedy.
I think it should be Max Rebo's Big Move.
Very good. Very nice play.
Yeah. Max Rebo calls in sick or something that morning, and then he finds out that the place got exploded. All right. I'm not going to read through the whole. This cast is basically everybody who had a recurring role in the Book of Boba Fett this season, and they all came back. So I won't go through all that. I did like that we got a name for the Weequay character, the W. Earl Brown character. His name is Tanti, Taanti. So you don't just have to call him the Weequay anymore. So that was good. And Robert Rodriguez was back as both of his characters, also Phil Lamar, Barry Lowen as Garfala Quox, and then all the main folks that we've listed many times before. I did definitely want to shout out to the two stuntmen who played the Gamorrean guards, because I've never mentioned their names on this podcast before, and I just want to make sure we say their names. Frank Trigg, who's both a UFC fighter and a stuntman on a bunch of stuff, and Colin Himes, who's worked on a bunch of movies and TV shows. So they were the two Mandalorian guards. R.I.P. to the characters, and I hope the actors have continued success for sure. We did not have any notable new characters that showed up at all, which is another thing that I was kind of disappointed by, but I guess there was enough already going on that they could fill
That's
an
how
hour.
finales work, I think.
I guess that's true. Yeah. I think in my head, everything's just MCU now, you know? So in my head, there's always going to be like, here's what's coming next. When you see it at the end, like somebody new pops up and everybody's like, who was that? And then there are a few people who know who they are. And
Mac.
they have to explain. Yeah. They have to explain to their friends. Yeah, that was Harry Styles. He was born in space or something.
He's Thanos' brother named Eros / Star
Yeah.
Fox, but we don't call him Star Fox. That's confusing with the N64 game.
Right. But yeah, no new guest characters, no new characters or guest characters in this episode. Yeah, let's conclude this discussion of this episode and ask whether Robert Rodriguez is a good fit for Star Wars, because I think this is the big conversation that's happening right now that I've seen on Twitter, people arguing back and forth on this. I've said before on this podcast, I'm not a big fan of Robert Rodriguez as a filmmaker. I've seen a bunch of his stuff, never loved any of it really. I think my favorite movie of his is Sin City, but he's made a lot of stuff that I think is not very good. I don't know, Kyle, what do you think of Robert Rodriguez?
I mean, the only movie I've seen of his is actually Spy Kids 3D. So I don't have much of an opinion. I know most of his, I think Sin City is a very interesting looking film. I'm kind of fascinated by the idea of it and the fact that he left the DGA over it. But I'm not a fan of gore and stuff, so I've never really been into his work. But I mean, I didn't, aside from, we were talking about that one episode where the action was lacking. I thought this action was good, and this is one that he directed.
Yeah.
I don't see him being a bad fit by any means. I liked his episode of The Mandalorian as well. I don't exactly know what you would pinpoint aside from, the errors of that one episode, and that would put you off to him being like, what, put him off.
I would say my critique of Robert Rodriguez is there are filmmakers who can work quickly on a low budget and still make it look really good. And I think Jon Favreau is one of those people. I think he's proven to be one of those people. I don't think Robert Rodriguez is one of those people, because I watch this stuff and I think it's very slop. It looks like something that was made very fast and very cheaply. It just feels sloppy and rushed to me. And this episode was better, but yeah, going back to the first and the third, especially that third episode, it just felt like kind of slapdash to the point where, I mean, it actually is comparable, I would say, to the way George Lucas made the Star Wars prequels, because I do feel like those are lazily directed movies as well. And you see the behind the scenes footage of him just like Lucas like sitting in that folding chair, and calling action from there, and not really getting up in there and framing interesting shots and having cool looking composition or whatever. It's just like point the camera at the actors' faces and roll. It's not enough to keep me visually engaged with what's going on. I think that's my problem with Robert Rodriguez. I don't know. As far as like if Boba Fett came back for season 2, I think Robert Rodriguez is connected enough with this series, and that it would be weird if he didn't come back for a season 2. If they did a season 2 without him, that would be odd. I just would hope that he continues to improve his style, because I did think he did a better job here in the finale. And I think he's learning how to use the volume and the kind of virtual production that they're doing. Hopefully just gets better better and better. Rebecca, did you have any thoughts on that?
No, I just find that when I think of Robert Rodriguez's work, I think of joy. And there's a certain, for some reason, whenever I watch, and what I've seen Spy Kids, I've seen The Mandalorian, I've seen Boba Fett, and for me, there's just a childlike joy that I find to a tone. There's a tone to it. So even though it was this really serious episode with Mandalorian, right? Because it's the one where Grogu gets kidnapped, right? That's the episode directed.
Yes, the tragedy.
Yeah, he's able to keep it from being too intense. And similarly here, these are really, this is a really intense battle, and I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing per se, in some cases, but it's just for me, he has a way of kind of keeping kind of a light tone, even though it's like the end of the world or the end of their world, and yet there's still kind of a lightness to it. I'm really looking forward to I think he's doing a take on Zorro.
Okay.
And I'm eager for that to make its way. I think that's still in production. So many things have kind of been talked about and then gone away. I haven't kept really good tabs on it, but last I heard he was doing something like that. So I'm eager for that.
It's funny when Kyle said that Robert Rodriguez left the DGA, it just made me think like this guy is even more like George Lucas than I had made the connection before. And I had heard that before, but I'd forgotten about it. But yeah, they do have a lot in common. They're both like kind of maverick filmmakers who work outside of the system. So in that way, he is a good fit for Star Wars. But I never loved George Lucas as a director either. I think he's made literally 2 great films as a director, American Graffiti and the original Star Wars. And then he's a great producer outside of that. But maybe Robert Rodriguez is closer to George Lucas than a lot of these other filmmakers who are,
No, the other thing I was going to say is that with his Star Wars stuff, I feel like I'm watching my friends playing with their toys in the backyard. And so it was really funny to me then when there was like, he released this whole movie done right where he in essence had kind of storyboarded the episode or whatever with his toys. Because that's very much how I feel. I feel like I'm transported back to being 10 years old, and there's my friend Bill and my friend Dave with their Kenner toys, kind of all sprawled out and engaged in some sort of Star Wars storyline.
A good point. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm having my mind changed about this, but I wish maybe he'll do more, and I'll see some additional improvement there. So who knows? If they do announce a season 2, are you guys going to be excited for it? Are you going to be dreading it, or what?
I think I'll be down for it. I mean, I didn't hate this. It was more just kind of, it's just the name is the only confusing part. Like if this was just Mandalorian season 3, even I think people would have been like, okay, when's he showing up? And not had this expectation. So yeah, I guess I don't know what they could have done differently, except for maybe condense the beginning of this. And so it was only like a couple episodes before the Mandalorian comes back in a Mandalorian season 3.
What about you, Rebecca?
Yeah, I enjoyed what it was. It just didn't hit what I expected, and so I think that's for me. I felt like just as I was kind of getting into the flow of it, like what it was going to be, it took a turn, and then it was over.
Right.
And so I think but as far as like, do I want to see more adventures of Fett and Shand? Shand more than Fett. Honestly, I'm disappointed with the amount of screen time, lack thereof, of my understanding of who Fennec Shand is in this real world experience. I wanted more of her, and so if you could give me more of her, I'd be really, really happy. Because I find
what's that?
I find her a fascinating character.
Yeah, I would like to see more of her as well. And Mike said in the comments, season 2 is coming. It's called Obi-Wan episodes 3 and 4, which is very funny. But it kind of goes along with what I said in my review of this episode, which is eventually they just need to call this Star Wars, the TV show. And you can check in on anybody. You could go visit Boba Fett for an episode or Din Djarin or Luke Skywalker, and then nobody would have anything to complain about, because as long as you're into Star Wars, you'll be somewhat satisfied. In fact, it kind of goes back to that Star Wars Adventures comic book we were talking about earlier, where they could go any era, any character. That's what I like about that comic. And if they eventually got to that point in a TV show, but you tune into Star Wars this week, you don't know what you're going to get. I think that might be a pretty wonderful way to approach it. I don't know.
Or even have another show where you go anywhere, anytime with people we've never met and no one you've ever seen before will ever be on it. Like, I think people think a little too think of the Star Wars universe as being too small, even though we're talking about thousands of years and all these different planets and stuff. So I don't know why people always think that we need to tie into this specific point on the timeline. You know,
that's very, very true as well. Okay. Anything else that you would want to see or expect to see when we get to Mandalorian season 3 next year? Either of you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard. Like the stuff we wanted to see kind of happened.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to see him, I guess, probably more with, well, he kind of understands like how to use the Darksaber now too. Like, you know, like that, him wielding that for the first time would have been a big moment. Him reuniting with Grogu would have been a big moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm not exactly sure. I guess maybe, you know, more conflicts with him and the remaining Mandalorians since he has to atone. So I think the atonement will probably be a big part of the next season.
Do we think that Grogu's storyline with Luke is done?
Yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to kind of bring up too, because now that we know he's chosen this path of the Mandalorian, like what are the implications of that? Because as soon as he showed back up and I was like, okay, he chose the armor instead of the lightsaber, my first thought was like, will he continue to use the Force? You know, is he even allowed to, quote unquote, use the Force if you're a Force sensitive being, but you choose not to do the Jedi path? Can you go? I mean, we've seen people like that in Star Wars before who are not quite aligned. Even Ahsoka is not technically a Jedi. But yeah, we do see Grogu use the Force a bunch later on in the episode. So I guess he'll continue having those powers and using them despite not being trained for it to be a Jedi, which I don't know. That just seems kind of dangerous to me, I guess. Or maybe it's more dangerous to be a Jedi because those people go to the dark side too. There's a lot of questions I feel like we could be asking about the implications of that choice. And I feel like that will hopefully be explored. If I had to pick something that I would like to see in season 3, it would be to explore that question. I don't want to go through my Easter egg list because it wasn't very long this week. And, you know, like I said, most of the stuff in this episode had appeared already in previous episodes. And we've already talked about the stuff that wasn't, the King Kong thing, the droids that were from the concept art. So you can go and check that out on LaughingPlace.com. And is there anything else that you guys want to say now that we've reached the end of the Book of Boba Fett about this episode or the series before we move on?
Not really. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I woke up early every Wednesday to watch it, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it ultimately ties into the rest of whatever this Favreauverse is.
Yeah, I think it was a mixed bag for me too. I mostly enjoyed it. There was parts of it that I really loved and parts I didn't think were that great. But I mostly had a good time, and that's what I come to Star Wars for. It's fun. So I would say it's worth a watch at the very least. So that's going to bring us to the end of our 7-episode discussion of this season of Book of Boba Fett on Disney Plus. And it's going to bring us to our final segment of Who's the Bossk each week, called First Steps into a Larger World, where we talk about the media that we've been consuming and or enjoying outside of Star Wars. My example this week is a Netflix original series called Murderville. It stars Will Arnett. It is a murder mystery show, a comedy, and it's got a lot of improvisation in it, and it's got some very funny guest stars. I thought it was really funny in parts and really dependent on the guest stars, like level of commitment to the concept. Have you guys watched this at all?
It's on my to-do list. I haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay.
So I Doobie and I caught a teaser for it somewhere, and I was like, okay, yeah, I want to check this out. So it's I'm eager to see it, but haven't yet. How about you, Kyle?
Same. I'm very interested in the concept. I know you guys have been talking about it uh, in our Slack channel, so I'm very interested to check it out. Just haven't made it a priority yet.
I thought the first 3 were stronger than the last 3, and my favorite episode was the Kumail Nanjiani one. Just very, very funny, and again, it's just his commitment to the bit that really sold it, and it had me cracking up. So check that out on Netflix. What about you, Kyle? What have you been watching, reading, playing, anything?
So we've been keeping up with Hulu's new show, How I Met Your Father.
Okay.
It's definitely enjoying it more than I thought that I would. If anything, I think it's kind of funny because there's jokes on it, and I'm like, that's corny. And I'm like, but that sounds exactly like something that would have been on the original show. It actually makes me think that the other show is not as good as I as I thought it was. But I'm fine with that somehow. It's one of those things. But I think it's interesting. It's comfort food. I don't think it's great, but I am enjoying learning more about these new characters, and it's got some nods to the old show without being just total fan service. And I like Hilary Duff a lot.
Great. Rebecca?
I got very excited today with the drop of the Jurassic World Dominion trailer. Right? That's what that was. I'm interested. I am now interested. I don't know that I was interested before. I am interested now because it feels like it's really embracing the ridiculous high intensity man versus dino dynamic that I think is fun. I like ridiculousness. So I'm hopeful that it will give me that.
And stars The Last Jedi's Laura Dern.
That is true. I was intrigued by that trailer as well. I do not care for Colin Trevorrow as a filmmaker either. I did like Safety Not Guaranteed is fine.
Yeah, there's Kathleen Kennedy.
That's very true. Yeah. But yeah, I don't like the first Jurassic World, the 4th Jurassic Park movie that much. And the one that he just wrote, which was the Fallen Empire, I guess, I just thought was bad. But this one, you got the original cast. Looks well shot. I think there's some action scenes in this trailer that look kind of goofy. That's my biggest fear. It's like the motorcycles through Italy or whatever is going on there. And I still think the idea of training raptors is dumb, but I will see it. I'm going to see it, and I hope it's good. I really hope it's good. Jurassic Park came out when I was 13 years old, and I loved it. I think I saw it a dozen times in the theater. So probably it might be the movie I've seen the most in the theater.
Mine is Garden State with 10.
Garden State, okay. Rebecca, which movie have you seen the most in the theater? Do you know?
Probably Pete's Dragon.
Pete's Dragon, the original, not the
the animated. Yeah, probably. But I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I have to think on that. Wow.
Okay. I don't know. But yeah, that's Jurassic World Dominion. I think that's like June 10th or something. So cross my fingers that's good. I want to thank my guest this week, Kyle Burbank, for stopping by for, let's see, an hour and 40 something minutes to chat about Star Wars. Kyle, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And Rebecca Mosley helping out with the tech side of things and also contributing to the convo. Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome, Mike.
And next week on Who's the Bossk, we will not be releasing an episode next week because I'm going to take a much needed break from this show. I did not take a break between seasons 2 and 3 of Who's the Bossk because the end of my Lucasfilm retrospective last year overlapped with or butted right up against the beginning of the Book of Boba Fett. So I never got a break. I'm going to take a breath for a couple weeks, but we will be back. There's lots more Star Wars coming up this year. I'm very excited for all the content coming and excited to talk about it here on the show as well. In the meantime, please visit LaughingPlace.com for all your Disney news and opinions. My name is Mike Celestino. Thank you out there for watching and or listening. See you next time. Bye.